Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on this 7th day of June 2021 to this seminar as the BARP Consumer Affairs Committee in collaboration with the Fair Trading Commission presents Scams and Schemes. We would like to first off apologize for the late start. And just before we go, we just want to mention some housekeeping matters. We want to welcome everyone who's on the Zoom, welcome everyone who's on the BARP YouTube page and also on Facebook too as well. And as we are not only on Zoom, we are going to be live on YouTube. So we want to invite all the participants to keep their videos off and keep your microphone off unless you have a query. If you have a question, you can put up your Zoom hand and then the administrator, Charlene, will tell you when to speak. Or you can post your question in the Zoom chat as well. And if the persons on YouTube have questions, you can place your questions in the comments and the webmaster will submit those questions to the conversation. We now have the pleasure of welcoming remarks from the president of the Barbados Association of Retired Persons, Ms. Marlene Weiss-Bowen.
Good morning all and welcome. Want to acknowledge direct members of the Board of Directors of BARP, the management and staff are members of BARP, or members of the Consumer Committee being headed by Chair John Martineau, members of the Fair Trading Commission, Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward, Samantha Hines, Julia Regis, Wanda Critchlow Trotman and Natalia Hutchison Holder. Welcome to Fair Trading Commission's team. Welcome also to the communications team from BARP, Peter Boyce and Carolyn Scanterbury, our friends in the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed with a great pleasure and a sense of duty to BARP members and the seniors in Barbados that I welcome you all to this session this morning entitled Scams and Schemes. On behalf of the Board of Directors, management and staff and the volunteers of BARP, I extend an enthusiastic welcome and hope that today's session will be as equally as informative as the past 4 sessions. At BARP, we place a high value on partnership. And this partnership with the Fair Trading Commission have provided us with a platform to heighten consumer awareness, in particular to seniors who are already living on a reduced income. The need, therefore, to ensure that value for money is received and service and quality are never compromised. Our presenter today, Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward, she will share very shortly with us her format for our presentation. Mrs. Leslie Ward, we are indeed looking forward to your presentation this morning. I encourage all to continue to monitor our social media platforms and our website so that you could register for upcoming sessions, because we will have a session in July, but we'll make announcements on those very shortly. In closing, I want to reaffirm BARP's commitment to seniors in Barbados to be the leader in champion through vigorous advocacy and through the promotion of lifelong learning for capacity enhancement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Marlene. As we go on, we just want to send a reminder to Mr. George Straker, if you could please turn your video off. Just keep your video off for the time being. And also everyone else, remember your video and your microphones are to be off. I am your host for this session, Peter Boyce, and right now I have the pleasure of introducing our main presenter, Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward. She has worked at the Fair Trading Commission since 2017 as Director of Consumer Protection. She also worked at the Barbados Revenue Authority in the capacity of General Counsel and Corporate Secretary for almost 3 years. Previously, she worked at the Fair Trading Commission in the legal department and was specifically assigned to the utility regulation, competition, and consumer protection matters. Dava is an attorney at law and was admitted to the bar in 2005 and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree and an Executive Master's in Business Administration from the University of the West Indies. Ladies and gentlemen, we present Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. I am going to share my screen and then we're going to get started. Okay, so the title of my presentation this morning is, as you can see, we're looking at schemes and scams, and we're placing specific emphasis this morning on the pyramid scheme. As stated before, my name is Dava Leslie Ward, and I work at the FTC in the capacity of Director Consumer Protection. So before I officially start the presentation this morning, I'm going to give a brief disclaimer, letting you know that the views in this presentation are entirely my own, and they do not necessarily represent those of the board of the Fair Trading Commission. So now that I've gotten that disclaimer out of the way, I am going to start with a brief welcome. Now, we all know we got the news that we wanted to hear. I'm sure if you are like me, you appreciated the Sunday shopping. You know, so we're at a point where the dust has settled now, the restrictions are easing off, we're going shopping on Sundays again, and so are the scammers. I don't know if you spend a lot of time on social media marketplaces, but during the last year or so, I found myself using social media marketplaces increasingly and even making purchases using that form. So it has been a flurry of activity on social media, and now we're going back outside. We are finding ourselves in the same position, the exact position that we were in around this same time last year. We are out, so are the scammers. We need to shop, so are the scammers. And the problem is that we don't have a lot of money, neither do they. So what we are finding is that we are getting lots of inquiries about persons who have been told by their friends and family about joining a circle in order to be blessed. So the best part about this quote-unquote blessing is that it's a life-changing opportunity. There's minimal effort. You can earn a full-time income from the comfort of your home. There's no experience required. You just have to follow a few simple steps. Now, incidentally, these steps I am asserting this morning will help you to identify a scam. So we're going to look at the steps that are being used to encourage people to participate in these types of schemes, which will cause you to lose your money. So the first thing is you meet. So you're usually invited to a meeting. This meeting can be in person or it could even be online. Nowadays, because of everything that is going on, we find most of our meetings are virtual. Step two, they greet. When you attend these meetings, the host creates a very warm, friendly, inviting atmosphere. They call you by your name, they ask you how you're doing, they shower compliments on you. You know, it is a family-friendly atmosphere, and this is done deliberately. The next step is connect. This is all a part of the psychological aspects of buying, and I'm sure that most of you know, especially when you from that life where you were working, that there's a lot of psychology that goes into encouraging a consumer to make a purchase. They utilize this like, trust, know formula. People tend to buy from people who they like, who they know, and who they trust. So that's what they're trying to engender by having this connection. So in order to connect, they perform rituals that are familiar to the particular group of persons. So there might be some type of pledge that persons are already used to, or some type of invocation. And that invocation, it could be in the form of a prayer, it could be in the form of a song or some type of motivational speech. So the point is that these things are essentially done in order to form a connection between the host and the persons who are attending. So the next step is to impress. So they're going to use lots of catchy words. The persons who speak are going to be very eloquent. They'll use words like transparency, not a pyramid scheme. Let's pray to God and put it before him. Let us pray that it works. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. What do you have to lose? These are all parts of the nice impression that they try to give you, not use the words that are persuasive in order to convince you. Then what's the next thing that they do? They appeal, they're not trying to get your emotions involved. They'll tell you things like, it's your time to win. You just have to believe. We are giving you the information that they don't want you to know because they don't want you to win, but we do. And they'll also tell you things like, other ethnicities do it. We don't want you to miss out. But apart from these nice anecdotes that make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside, what are the core hard facts? That is food for thought. So all wrapped up in this emotion and this appeal, it appeals to you because we all know this is a time where money is hard to come by and we all want to have money. We need money to meet our basic needs. And things are very, very difficult and challenging with people, and having that awareness, that's why this appeal is being coached in this way. So the next step is to deliver a very eloquent but convoluted explanation of the stages that you have to go through in order to invest, first of all, and thereafter to recoup your investment. It sounds extremely impressive, but when distilled, factually inaccurate. And the truth is, you might even walk away asking yourself, I don't really understand this. What really did they say? How does this actually work? Now, the truth is that if you're like me, you don't really understand finance significantly, but we do know one thing for sure is that finance is complex, and these financial issues, the details, we don't really want to get too involved in them. We just want the end result. And who understands these complex things anyway? So if it is complex, chances are this is accurate. So we take that checkbox. And then the next thing that they really do is they get us to really make it very easy for us to invest. And one of the tricks that they use, one of the psychological tactics that they use, is they utilize something that's called social proof. So you get John Brown or Myrtle Smith. This is some person you might know, or there might be a cousin's cousin, and they will tell you how it worked for them. So we all know reviews are powerful. So just as an aside, I know I shop online, especially when I'm trying to get books for my son. He really likes superhero books, and I found it has been really difficult. So when I always go looking for these books, and I always read the reviews. Interesting fact, do you know that there is a big industry called fake reviews? And the Federal Trade Commission, which is an entity, the US equivalent of what we do, their Bureau of Consumer Protection actually went after the company for using fake reviews. So that is to say that just because John Brown and Myrtle Smith says that they got this money, the process was simple, the process was easy, that does not mean that is accurate. It might even be false. So that is something that is food for thought. That is really important to know, that not every single review is accurate or authentic. And the final thing they will tell you, and it is something that I heard my son with, he would say, Mommy, that is easy peasy lemon squeezy. So as the children say, investing is easy peasy lemon squeezy. All you have to do If you come, you meet me, you bring your money, and you can bring 2 people to invest in this particular quote-unquote investment. So at a later date, upon the conclusion of this very complex process, then you're going to get a 1,000% return on your investment. So essentially, in the midst of this pandemic where you aren't making any money, there is a way out for you. So at this point, I know many people are just saying to themselves, where do I sign up? There's just one slight little problem. While the owner of the scam is making lots of money, most of the people who invest in this scam lose it. So therefore, before you join, we really have to look at this. So I have a very quick question to you. This is something that I heard from my mom. My mom told me, if she's listening, hi mommy, she told me that this is not the correct quotation, but I've edited it slightly so that it is palatable. And I'm wondering if I can have someone in the audience who's willing to tell me what sweet about mouth to burn his belly. What does that mean? Anyone who's interested in sharing? Not seeing any hands? Okay. So anyone who's willing to share, there's a nice little prize, some FTC pens and pencils for you. Any takers? I'll give you another minute to indicate. So no takers for this question, so I'll just explain it. So essentially what it means is what sounds, sometimes you may eat something that tastes really sweet, but on the way back out, it is very painful. So similarly, what sounds sweet to your ear may actually turn out to be your detriment in the end, and it is actually very painful for you. And then there's another good debationism that we use. If it is too good to be true, it probably is. So I know that there are lots of questions that people are asking. So, okay, yes. So what exactly, I know you said that you're talking about scams and you're talking about the pyramid scheme, but what exactly is a pyramid scheme? So essentially, a pyramid scheme is an investment in which persons, paying participants recruit 2 or more persons to join the scheme. So what happens is that the persons who join, they pay in their money, and that money is given to the persons who would have invested earlier. So it is basically a case of, to put it in a nutshell, Peter pays for Paul. It is a Peter pay for Paul scheme. So how does it work exactly? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. So let's meet Ray. If you can see Ray on the screen here. Ray is a scam artist. You can see he's sitting down really nicely behind his computer, and you can see the money just being poured out to him. He is a person who's very cognizant of the hard economic times that we find ourselves in, and he knows that people are vulnerable and are running low on funds. And guess what? So is Ray. What does he do? He decides to start a scam. And as I would have mentioned to you before, he is very cognizant of the know, like, trust formula. So what does he do? Ray knows that if he works by himself, he is unlikely to convince people who don't know him, who don't like him, and who don't trust him to invest in him. So he hosts a meeting and encourages people to participate. So let's say Ray hosts this meeting and he encourages 4 people to come to this meeting. Let's call those 4 people, we're going to call those 4 people the scam promoters. Now, generally speaking, the scam promoters, they're innocent. So they might not be aware of the scam, but because Ray is such a well-spoken person and he seems to be so professional, he dresses professionally, he looks the part, he speaks the part, they are encouraged to buy in. So because they are encouraged to buy in, and they feel as though it is a life-changing opportunity, they then are told all you have to do is to bring 2 people to pay this fee, and you're going to get this return on your investment. So let's just say that the amount to invest is $100 per person. Now, in order to make it sound really legitimate, what Ray will usually say to you is, okay, so you're going to get a return on your investment, and the remaining money, that is going to go to be reinvested. This is usually called for, it is going straight into Ray's pocket. So as I said to you before, the money from each set of recruits will pay for the previous set of investors. And this process is repeated continuously until the scheme collapses and then runs out of money. So how does it work? Let's look at it. If you look at the picture that I have up here, you see the owner of the scheme. This is Ray. So Ray, what I've spoken to his for, you would see the first 4 people, those are called promoters. So promoter. Each of those promoters, they contribute $100. So $100 by 4, that is $400. So the $400 goes to Ray. So remember, each promoter had to bring at least 2 people. So promoter A brings 2, promoter B brings 2 more, promoter C brings 4, and promoter D brings 4. And they would have given them the same information that Ray would have given them. So each one of the recruits then have to pay $100. So that means, so remember, Ray would have gotten $400 from the promoter. So Ray is $400 richer. And these recruits now, well, the money from these recruits will then go to pay the promoters. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is someone saying something? Okay, I'm hearing some interference. I'm not sure if that is someone asking a question, but if it is, everybody just mute their mic until the end, and then you can ask any questions that you would like to. So we have 12 recruits, and that's $1,200. So from that $1,200, each of the promoters can then get $100. So 1,200 minus 400 leaves us with 800. That 800, which quote unquote goes to be invested, actually goes to Ray. So on that basis, the promoters of the scheme would be able to say, listen, it worked for me. I got a return on my investment, and it would be accurate because of due to the persons that they would have recruited, they were able to get their initial investment back. And then you can see the remaining money goes straight back to Ray's pocket. And this goes on successively. So can you imagine at a point where there are persons who are reluctant to invest in the scheme, then it collapses because there will be no persons there who will be able to pay the persons who went before. So we're going to have a poll question right now. So one of the questions I want to ask is, are all of the participants in a blessing circle, do they receive a payout? Is this true or false? All participants in a blessing circle receive a payout. True or false? I'm going to give you a minute to log your answers. Okay, so 1 more minute. Okay, so we're going to move on from that poll question, and we're going to answer that question a little bit later on in the presentation. So we're going to end the poll right now. Okay, so I know I would have talked about pyramid schemes, and I would have given you the explanation about them, and I would have indicated the reasons why these schemes collapse. So suffice it to say that pyramid schemes, you should not get involved in them. And definitely at the FTC, our legislation addresses the issue of pyramid schemes. Now, the important point to note is that there are different types of pyramid schemes. And this particular type of pyramid schemes that we're seeing being replicated, which is just being given a really fancy name, i.e. the blessing circle, is not one of the types of schemes that is contemplated in the FTC's legislation. So the type of scheme that our legislation looks at is where, just give me 1 moment, please. Is where there is a scheme where some person may be providing, or they may be offering goods and or services for sale. And in addition to offering goods and services for sale, they have what is called an opportunity to sell an opportunity. And the main crux of that is really where, so essentially you have your selling goods and services and you're recruiting persons, but it is more about the recruitment of the persons than about the sale of the goods and services. Now, I know that in Barbados, there are certain things that are called multi-level marketing schemes, and those are legal. That is the one where, let's say you might have a product. I'll just choose a product at random. So it might be some plastic containers, what Americans call Tupperware. So you have your Tupperware, and you might be telling the person, well, I'm selling this Tupperware, and I can recruit 2 people to join into my business. And once they join into my business, those persons you can become a recruiter yourself, and I can receive a portion of the sales. But the main focus of the business is not on the recruitment, but the main focus of the business is selling the Tupperware or the plastic containers, as we call them here in Barbados. So on the other hand, so that is more like a multi-level marketing scheme. On the other hand, what our legislation is trying to prevent are the types of schemes where some person is there, they might be saying, well, yes, I am selling a good or service, whatever that good or service is. But really and truthfully, they're not focused at all on the selling of the good and service, but they're really selling you this opportunity to invest in an opportunity. That is the main crux of it. And the reason why our legislation says it is unfair, since the financial reward that a person would get under these types of schemes is mainly dependent on the recruitment of participants. And when you look at the scheme as a whole, it is unlikely that most of the persons will be able to invite the number of people that are required for that person to receive some type of return on their investment. So all that says, and all that means is the amount of persons that you would have to invest in order to get some type of return is so astronomical that you would never be able to accomplish it. And as a result of that, you would lose your money. So that is the type of scheme our legislation focuses on. So where there's a good and service attached, And there's also the recruitment. So what happens usually in these types of cases is that it requires lots of economic analysis. So you have to analyze, you have to do analysis to see whether the goods and service, was that really the main crux of the business, or was it really dependent on the recruitment of persons? And then once you handle that hurdle, then you have to see whether most persons who they're recruiting these persons, whether there was an astronomical amount of persons needed for them to invest. So it would essentially cause that person to lose their money. So it means that with this type of scheme that we're seeing, there's not a lot that we can do. That's the reason why, one, we're looking to change our legislation, and two, we are doing so much education so that you don't get tricked. Now, it isn't to say that we can't do anything, but what we can do is somewhat limited, and we're actively working on coming up with a regulatory framework to bring this type of scheme that we're seeing into the loop. Because as you know, this scheme does not have any element of any goods and services. It is just straight, plain old recruitment of a person into a scheme. So one of the things I want to look at is the Mythbusters. And the reason why this Mythbuster is important is because it is one of the ones that I've been consistently seeing everywhere I go. And one of the things I've been hearing people say is that the blessing circle is equivalent to a susu or a mitintern. And not only that, I have been hearing that the blessing circle is not a pyramid scheme. So one of the things I thought it would be important to look at is to look at the concept of the whole mitintern or the susu, and we're going to compare that to the blessing circle, which is in effect a pyramid scheme. Now, if you're looking at the mitintern, we all know how meetings work. You have a certain set number of people, and there's a specific period for payment of the money. So let's say, for example, you have 5 people. Each one of those 5 persons, they're supposed to throw a hand. And let's say the scheme is paying the meeting term is paying on a monthly basis. So that would be each person contributing, let's say $100, 100 by 5, that is $500. So for that particular month, one person gets that $500. So it is almost like a merry-go-round. So everyone gets to take a turn. So this month, person A gets their 500, person B, C, D, and E, and so on until the meeting comes to an end. So the whole point of it is usually, as we know, it is an informal way of saving money, and it is something that many of our parents, our grandparents, and I would say even myself, I have been in meetings before, and I found that it is very useful, especially if you needed, well, this is obviously before last year when I needed to travel, and you wanted to have that lump sum. You throw a turn when you're traveling, and you have that lump sum, and you can go and you can spend your money for that particular period. Now, remember that the total contribution is given to everybody, and every single person has this turn. And it is important to note that there's no profit. So everybody gets the same $500. There's no profit. It is just essentially we're saving, and it is circulating to all the members of the team. Now, what happens in the blessing circle is that the blessing circle is not a circle. It isn't. It is essentially a pyramid where you have your scheme owner is at the very top of the pyramid, as the diagram suggests. You have your promoters, they are in blue. And then you have the scammed, they are in the yellow part of it. And the challenge is that the scammed, they pay the promoters. The promoters, they pay the scheme owner. But if there is no one there to pay the scam is essentially out of a whole set of money. And that is how the blessing circle works. So to answer the poll question that we had, can we get the answer to that, Samantha? So I'll give Samantha an opportunity to get ready to. Okay, well, so what we'll do is we'll take the answer, we'll ask you this question, you can participate, and then we'll do the answer to all the polls, and we'll see what side people came out on. So a blessing circle and a susu or a meeting turn are the same thing. Is it true or is it false? I'm going to give you a minute to do that. I'm going to time it. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. Okay, and now the poll is officially closed. So I'm going to give Samantha about 5 minutes to work on those poll results while I sum up the end. So the main crux of this presentation that I just did in terms of the meeting turn versus the pyramid scheme is we have to know that a pyramid scheme, which is what the blessing circle is, it is not circular. It depends on where you are in the pyramid. That increases your likelihood of getting a return on your investment. However, if you are not at a certain point in the pyramid, you can consider your money gone. Now, I know I used relatively low funds in order to address the issues here today, but the truth is that the types of the figures that I have been hearing for this scheme, they are just astronomical. I've heard some where people were putting in $1,500. I've heard somewhere people were putting in $200. I've heard somewhere people were putting in $2,500. So I know I used some really low figures today, but the truth is that when you think about the large sums that I'm hearing of, can you imagine how much the scheme owners are pocketing? And can you imagine how much the people who are scammed are losing? And believe me, we've had lots of reports of persons who were scammed. Samantha, do you have those poll results for us? Okay, so we have the result. The first result indicates all participants in a blessing circle received a payout. So 84% of you said false and 16% said true. So this, from our perspective, is certainly accurate. And I can tell you, not just from our perspective, but what we've heard from the consumers themselves and from our analysis of what we have been presented by these said consumers, it is clear to us that the blessing circle is just a fancy name for a pyramid scheme. Okay, so Samantha, could you bring up the next poll where we talked about whether the meeting turn and the pyramid scheme were synonymous? Yes, so we have 96% of the persons who participated in the poll indicated that this is false. I hope that, and only 4%, I hope that by the end of this presentation, that 4% changes their mind and we can discuss any questions. Any question segment. And I also hope that this visual gives you a clearer understanding of what happens in the meeting turn and then what happens in the pyramid.
Transaction, the intent, the original.
Okay, so we're getting some feedback again. Could you please mute your mics? Thank you very much. So how do we separate facts from fiction? How do you protect your money? One of the main things I want to encourage you, even if you sat in this presentation today and you feel as though she doesn't know what she's talking about, she might be talking about 1, 2, 3 blessing circle, but not 4, 5, 6 blessing circle. 4, 5, 6 is different. Let me go through a few things. Number one, don't give up your money without a receipt. If anyone asks you to pay over money or to invest money in a project or a blessing circle without providing a receipt, don't do it. Because at a minimum, you need to have some documentation that proves that you would have exchanged money for the person in question. Now, the receipt should also have certain information. It should have the reason why you would have handed over the money, the name of the person who you handed the money over to. It should also have your name and the amount that you would have paid. Excuse me. If someone is reluctant to provide this information to you and to provide you with a receipt, that is a red flag, because it suggests to me that they are trying to avoid having a paper trail. And if you know anything about trying to recover your money, you need to have that paper trail. And I would also say, make sure that the person who is receiving your money, they show you a copy of their ID card so you can guarantee. If it was John Brown, you can say, well, I saw the person's ID card and it said John Brown. So you have all of that information clearly stated there. Now, in addition to that, some of the other questions you would usually ask: were you given a contract? Were you given some type of an investment contract? That's important. What are the terms and conditions that are applicable to this contract that you had gotten into? It is important for you to be able to understand whether this is an investment contract versus a donation. If it is a donation, remember, you lose it, you don't recoup it. A donation is essentially a gift. So you need to have, they should give you terms and conditions so you understand specifically what happens. So for example, what happens if the scheme collapses? What happens to your initial investment? Do they have a way of giving you back? How is the fund being managed? They should, if you are investing, and this is something I learned very recently, they should give you a prospectus. This details how the money is going to be managed. They explain the corporate structure that they're going to use in order to handle or to manage the funds. And it also will tell you the things that they are going to invest your fund into to generate this return. Now, these are all important questions that you should ask. If you are asking these questions and the person can't give you an answer, these are some serious red flags that you need to consider. So to the membership of BARP, today I want to impress upon you the need to protect your money. Especially at this point in time where we are all living on a limited income. Don't just give your money arbitrarily to some person just because it sounds sweet. Remember the Bajanism that I gave you earlier that came compliments of my grandmother that I cleaned up a little bit. What sweet and go out does burn the belly. Peter, I'm handing back over to you and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dava Leslie Ward. At this time, we're going to open the floor for questions. Just put your Zoom hand up and you'll be able to ask questions. Thank you for a very engaging and interesting presentation. Any questions from members of the audience?
Please put out your hand.
Oh, it's raised your hand.
You can just go ahead and ask the question, because we can hear you.
Yes, I'm asking whether or not the FTC has control over us getting back our treasury bills and bonds, since they are so sure about, because I think I'm being misinformed about the blessing circles. I want to know if they can do anything about my bonds and my treasury bills that I cannot get back.
I was muted. Ma'am, unfortunately, that is not something that I can address. That is something that you need to take back up with the Central Bank of Barbados. And I'm not sure if you are talking about, were you talking specifically about bonds that you would have
But
purchased?
that's also, but ma'am, that is also a scam too.
Ma'am, I can't say that it is a scam. And I can tell you that I can tell you I have received about just last week, I don't want to say last week, about last month, I had a gentleman, a very young gentleman, who lost a large sum of money investing, quote unquote, investing in this pyramid scheme. If you would like to challenge the bona fides of the scheme, I would like to engage in that discussion with you, but we just can't try to use anecdotal information in order to say, well, that is a scheme, so this is one too. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to, any other point you want to make. I'm very willing to listen to hear what it is that you're saying.
Everton Hunt here. I think this session is very timely. Last Wednesday, I was invited to look at one of these blessing circles. And the first thing that hit me was their use of a reverend to start the sessions. That, to me, was a red flag. The second thing is, about 2 days after the change from Circle 9 to Circle 11, the next thing was what you said, when they said they do not give receipts. That totally turned me off, and I left the meeting at that point. So these sessions are very timely at this critical juncture in our lives.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And that's just to say that we really, we noticed that based on the information that had been feeding back to us at the FTC pertaining to the fact that people were not being given a receipt, there is no way, no how that I would ever hand over thousands of dollars without at a minimum receiving a receipt. Because at that point, it's always that person's word against your word. And in the event that, when everything is going good, it sounds good, and you may be very encouraged to do it because some person is encouraging you to do it. The truth is that at the end of the day, when the scheme collapses, depending on where it is, and you lose your money, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to recoup that. If I see a hand up by Mr. Everton Hunt. Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Hunt just spoke, but Miss Lane, Esther Lane's hand was up for a while. Can we acknowledge her, please?
Okay. Go ahead, please, Miss Lane.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to thank you, Ms. Ward, for your presentation, because what it really did for me was to enlighten me a bit more about the mess out there, about the schemes and the scams. And I am further convinced that the Blessing Circle that I'm involved with is not a pyramid scheme. Anytime you're going to invest your money, you should check out where you're putting it in, etc. And honestly, there are a lot of schemes out there and a lot have gone belly up and everything. Just like in everything, there's good and there's bad. But what I can speak to the circle that I'm currently on, a lot of the things that you presented about pyramids do not apply. Do not apply. There's no promoter, there's no, I don't remember all the other names, but everyone who enters that circle has this equal opportunity of being, as we call it, blessed out. There's no one in terms of a promoter or owner or whoever picks up your money and hoards it or keeps it. Nobody does that. There's no, whatever is due to a person he gets, and it has nothing to do with a person collecting and redistributing. So I think that when you are, you cannot necessarily lump everything in the same basket. You cannot paint all the circles with the same brush, because there are some, I would dare to say, that might have started because people want to get rich quick. They're not necessarily managed efficiently or effectively. You can't, what you are saying is not true to all. And you're talking about receipts and people, but there's no receipt that anybody received when they're in a meeting turn either. And for me, the circle that I decided I was going to get involved with, because I checked it out, is really an upgrade to a meeting turn. And everybody has an equal opportunity to be blessed out. If the persons who are carrying it along, the admins per se, if they want to be, as we say, blessed out, they also have to go in just like anybody else, because they do not touch the money. And I can say so because I speak from experience. They don't touch the money. But there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of what you have said is probably true to some. It's probably true to some, but certainly not true to all.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Okay, so what is your role exactly in the scheme?
My role?
Yes.
My role is.
Are you just a participant? Are you a participant, or are you one of the administrators?
I am not. I'm far from being an administrator. All right. I only heard about it. Listen to me. I heard about a scheme late last year. All right. And I didn't get involved in it. I just didn't have it in me, because I've always heard about Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes. All right. And when I was approached, I said, no, I'm not in for that. In January, a friend of mine told me about this one I'm currently in. And my initial response was the same. And then I decided, I asked questions. I went to one of the Zoom meetings. I went to the next. And what I heard sounded legitimate to me. What I saw, people offering, and there were real people offering testimonies about their journey and whatever. And it is not a get rich quick. It is not a get rich quick thing. I beg your pardon?
Can I ask you some more questions?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so what is the name of what's the corporate structure that they're using in order to promote this scam? What's the name of the corporate structure? Is it a company? Is it a partnership? Is it a sole tradership? What is it? What is their corporate structure?
Well, you see, those are terms I may not necessarily know like you.
Oh, right. So this is good information for you to ask. You should ask them. So I want you to ask.
What I can tell you, have you ever heard about crowdfunding?
I've heard about crowdfunding, but hang on.
Have you ever researched it?
Hold on. This is Miss Lynn. I am not.
It is.
Right, Miss Lynn. Okay, just making sure I have the right person. Right, Miss Lynn, I want to ask you a question. If this is,
and I can give you what I can do. I can direct you as well to the persons who would be in a better position, because I'm not here necessarily. I'm not here representing the circle. And I would not necessarily wish to speak out of turn. I can tell you about my personal experience. I'm not representing the circle. I'm telling you about my personal experience.
Right. I want to give you, well, let me give you the personal experience of a family member of mine who joined one of those circles. I'm going to give you that afterwards, but I want you to ask them some questions. I want you to ask them what their corporate structure is. I want you to ask if they're registered with corporate affairs, how long they've been registered with corporate affairs.
But when you're running a meeting turn, do you have a corporate structure and do you register with corporate affairs?
This is the thing. This is not a meeting turn that they're running. Remember
and
that.
In my opinion, is an upgrade to a meeting turn.
Right, but
and then, like I said to you, it's about crowdfunding. Because listen to me, what I'm saying to you is nobody takes my money and redistribute it to others. Nobody takes any person's money where you can say, well, we are investing it that it can grow, And let me tell you something. I have entered into this circle and I have benefited more than when I took my hard-earned gratuity and invested it in debentures. I entered a contract and I was expecting that at the end of X amount of time, I would have gotten X amount of returns. And that contract was changed and I had nothing to do with it, no say, no input. That at that point in time was more of a scam than the circles that you are making out. I mean, that was something that ran smoothly and efficiently and effectively up until that became more of a scam. And I did not hear Fair Trading interceding on my behalf that I could have recruited the money that I should have gotten because of the contract that I had entered in. And even though there was paper trail,
a chance to say anything, Ms. Lane, and I do want to hear you, but in order for it to be a conversation, it has to be one where there's some kind of backward and forward. So, I'd give you a chance to speak, and I will let you have the same opportunity that you have had. Is that okay? Can we agree to that? Okay. So what I'm saying to you is that I understand you are one of the persons who happened to join at an appropriate point in time. Let me just give you this experience. I know of someone who invested in the scheme. They got out $20,000. And as a result of that, they encouraged their brother to invest in the scheme. Two brothers. The two brothers went to the bank, got a loan, and invested because it was their sister who had encouraged them to do it, and she got her money out. It ended up, when they took their money and invested it into the scheme, the scheme collapsed, they lost the money, and the sister that got the 20,000 took up the 20 and had to split it in two to give each brother to pay back the bank for their investment. So what I'm saying to you is that yes, there will be some persons, it will quote unquote work for some. And I am saying to you, yes, it will work for some, but for the vast majority of those persons, it won't work. On average, I can tell you on any day between November and November last year, and let's say about November, December, we got at least 5 persons who would have contacted us every day, indicating that they had lost money in the pyramid scheme. So what I'm saying to you is that, when they spoke to us, they explained to us, some person who got a payout, it would have worked for them. So I'm saying to you, yes, it would have worked for you in this circumstance, but unless you are seeing the financial statements that are being provided by these people, you really cannot say what is happening to the money. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your question, Esther Lane. We now move on to another person, Rose.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to hear about this for a while, but I also was invited to a meeting. I had no idea what the meeting was till I got to the gymnasium, and there were hundreds. I mean, I've never seen the gymnasium that full for any event. And when we got there, the person that invited me and went with me saw someone that said, oh, I only got one person. When we went in, they gave a beautiful talk about this trading, some kind of trading. And there were lots of people that came up on stage who were platinum, gold, silver, bronze members that won various amounts of money. And they were taking, like they spoke to you and said, look, it's easy, you can invest. We have equipment that you can use so that you can do this trading. But however, it is expensive for one person. So, you can invest X amount of money and you can share the equipment and you can work on it. And that's how you make your money. Well, I told the person when they started, excuse me, but I am leaving. I don't believe in these kinds of things. To me, this is a pyramid scheme. That's why I told the person. They didn't argue with me, they left. I'm sure they were disappointed, but we left. Is that part of do you know of that one where you're trading? It isn't trading commodities. It's trading, I think they call it Forex or something like that. Yeah. What do you call that? That was on the live.
Well, to be honest with you, I am aware of it. When I have a friend who, well, I've known him from ever since. We've been to school, been to foundation together and all of that. So when he saw that I was doing this, he did mention it to me. And I did look at it, but I can tell you that from everything that they have shown or everything that I've seen, now I've never been to a meeting, they are representing themselves as a multi-level marketing scheme. Now, remember I said that there's nothing wrong with the multi-level marketing scheme, because with the multi-level marketing scheme, their main focus is not necessarily on the recruitment, but they're selling these goods and services, and the recruitment, that's just like a periphery benefit, but that is not the main crux of this thing. It is mainly the sale of these goods and services. Now, the truth is that on the face of it, it sounds like a multi-level marketing scheme. It looks like a multi-level marketing scheme. But, so this is the type of scheme, this same thing with Forex, that is the type of thing that will fall under the consumer protections legislation. So this is something that we would be able to investigate because it hits all of those markets in terms of that they're offering the two. So there's the goods and services, and then they have the element of the recruitment as well. Unfortunately, I can't tell you whether it falls within Section 23. We have not done enough analysis. It requires quite a bit of economic analysis. We would have to see, we would have to get more information. We would have to talk to the persons who are involved in the scheme. So this is not one that I can just answer you right off the bat or right off the cuff. It is something that we would have to launch an investigation into. We haven't launched an investigation into it at this time. And I can't say whether we will do it in the future, but that is as much information as we can provide about that situation.
Okay, there's a second one. So that was about 3 years ago. Okay. But recently, okay, hold on one second. I got to plug in my battery. Hold on. Recently, I was approached at church I was approached at church where a member called a meeting with 3 of us. And we were shown, I wasn't quite understanding what it was because we were supposed to be doing educational programs, I thought. But they had this, and then they showed a video. And after the video, they were saying, do you understand? I said, well, I don't understand because I'm not knowledgeable in trading. Like, I don't know companies. I don't know, like how you would say flow on with this. I don't know what they do. They said, but we are not trading that kind of thing. We're trading money. It's just money. So you can invest any little bit and all that. Again, they spoke about you can purchase this thing that can help you, teach you, but it's expensive. So what we would do is the 4 of us would share the cost. So say for instance, it's well, say for instance, it's $1,200. We would share, the four of us would share, so therefore each person would pay $300. And then they started saying, well, we'll have more meetings on it, but you'll need to get a broker soon. So, and this is based, and they say it's a good place because this is coming from a university in the UK. Well, I needless to say, I did not attend any more meetings because I don't have money in the first place. And then to do something like that, I don't like anything that I don't know about. And there isn't a local anything. So again, to me, it had just appeared to be the same sort of pyramids, the same like the other trading one that I told you about.
Yeah, it sounds like the person was saying that as well. Unfortunately, what you could, did it have a name? Was there a particular name associated with it?
As I said, I don't know because I didn't go to any more meetings, so nothing was sent to me. So I didn't attend any, but I heard since then that other members, I asked a few other people, it had appeared as though it was just the three of us. But then when I asked a couple other people, then they say, yeah, they approached me, but I told them no.
Well, it sounds like it's a side of caution rather than you investing and then you losing your money. That sounds like it sounds as though you dodged a serious bullet there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I had seen Mr. Moore had a question.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you, Ms. Ward. And good morning to the audience. I have a question. One of the things we looked at in your delivery, we identify what are the pyramid schemes, what are the ones we need to keep away from, which is great to be aware of. But what is quite interesting though is that having recognized that there are certain schemes out there that Barbadians need to be aware of, my question today though, as a concerned Barbadian, what are safe investments would you suggest? And this is your opinion, as you're giving your opinion not from the Fair Trade Commission, but your opinion. What safe investments would you suggest that Barbadians and Barbadians at heart can safely invest in Barbados?
Mr. Moore, I will be very honest with you. I am not a financial guru. What I can, so I would not even try to answer that question because I have no idea what would be safe to invest, especially in this environment. So I wouldn't want to say what I think that would be. And that is completely out of my scope as Director of Consumer Protection, and it is completely out of my personal scope. I know about the pyramid scheme because it is actually in the FTC's legislation, and it is something that from time to time we would do some education on. So for example, a couple of years back, I did meet with the US Federal Trade Commission, and they did a presentation for us on pyramid schemes, and I would have garnered a lot of the information I could have delivered today from that meeting. And I am also a member of the International Consumer Protection and Enforcement Network. So they tend to give us information, so that's how I can tell you all about it. But in terms of larger investments, can't help you with that. But what I can do is I will be meeting with some parties coming up, and I can certainly pass on that information and see whether, but it depends on whether the membership of the Madam President is so interested, and also Mr. Martineau, who I know is the head of Consumer Protection. If they're interested, I can pass on the information and see if we can get someone to speak to BARP's membership about the type of investments that are good and are useful and beneficial at this time.
Permission granted.
Okay, thank you.
That information. And I also had a question from Mr. Husbands, and then Ms. Brian.
Hi, Ms. Ward. Thanks. It was a good presentation. During your presentation, you put up a slide which kind of showed how the money is collected and paid back out. I don't know if you could put that slide back up again, because I think that would be very helpful, really, in allowing people to see where the money comes from to pay out the previous people, just to show why you can run into problems with those schemes. If you could go through that again, I think that would really help to people to understand how the money is generated, or circulated is probably a better word.
Let me just give me 1 second. Right, this is it. Is this the one you're talking about, Mr. Husband?
Yeah, that's the slide, Ms. Ward. I don't know if you could go through that again, because I think that helps to clarify the situation with the.
Okay, I can go through that again. So what I would have explained is that you have the owner at the top. Remember Ray, he is our scam artist. And Ray, he doesn't have any money. He really needs to get some money coming in. Times are hard. His usual investments or his usual way to acquiring money is non-existent. So what does Ray do? Ray, he's well-spoken, he's very professional, and he knows that he has the gift of the gab and he can convince people very easily. So what does he do? He invites people to this meeting, and to go to this meeting, he tells them that he has a life-changing opportunity for them. They can invest their money in it, and they will readily get a return on their investment. It's very, as I said to you before, it is, as the children say, it is easy peasy lemon squeezy. So all you have to do is bring your $100, and you bring a minimum of 2 recruits. So they brought their $100, and we got 4 people who signed up. So these are the promoters. These are usually the innocent people. They're unsuspecting, and they really believe what Ray is saying. What do? They pay Ray $100, and they got the minimum of 2. So promoter A, he brought on his 2. Promoter B, he also brought on his 2. But promoters C and D, they brought on 4 persons each. In total, we have 12 new recruits. So from these 12 new recruits, promoter 1A, B, C, and D, they get back their $100. So 100 by 4, that is $400. Remember, there are 12 recruits, so it's $1,200. So 1,200, 400, taken from 1,200 is like 800. That 800, they would usually say it is reinvested into the business, but it isn't reinvested. It goes straight to the owners. So if you look at it, the recruits, the money that they would have submitted went to pay the promoters, and the remainder of the money went to Ray. Now, if let's say, for example, there's a 4th level, it isn't pictured here, but each of these recruits then recruits at least 2 persons. The money from this 4th level will go to pay the 12 recruits. And then the remaining money goes to the promoter and then to the owner. So that is how the money circulates. You need to have a future set of recruits. So you know how we used to say as children, Peter pays for Paul? So picture Peter as being the 4th level is not here. Peter is paying for Paul. Paul is the recruits. The recruits, then to the promoter to the owner. So the money is filtering up. So if, let's say, for example, now, there's a 5th level. Sorry, so let's say, for example, there is no 5th level. The people at the 4th level would lose their money, because there needs to be fresh money coming in to replenish, to make sure that the previous level gets their money. So that is how it works. And that is one of the reasons why if you come in early enough, you will get your money. But if, and think about it, if you encourage your friend or your brother to come in and there are not enough recruits to be able to satisfy the previous person and the promoters and rate, then that person would have lost their money. So think about how you would feel if you encourage the person you know to invest and then they end up losing their money.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. We have a question from Betty Grandison from Facebook, and she's asking.
Mr. Bones, there was a question from page Brian.
Okay.
Mr. Bones?
Okay, all right, let's hear it from page Brian.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you for your excellent presentation and good morning to everyone. I just want to say that I wasn't here from the very beginning. I missed like the first 15 minutes, so I'm not sure if this was covered, but I want to find out what is being done to educate the populace outside of this forum. So for example, you have some really good slides there with graphics, etc. that I was thinking you could do like some newspaper infomercials, for want of a better word, but not a lot of information at a time, just small bites of information in various forms of the media. So I'm trying to understand what would be done to educate outside of this forum. And I know that there have been things said already, but I think that it bears repeating because of the fact that persons are still investing in these schemes, well, scams for want of the correct word, and are still losing their funds.
Yes, so that is a really good question. And we are actually in the process of having a scam week. And we are going to be doing a lot more of the promotion that you mentioned. In terms of the small bits of information, we plan to have a campaign running on social media. And we're also looking to see how we can get the same information out via radio and television. I hear your call for more information, and I will definitely, I really appreciate the question. When I meet with the members of the board tomorrow, I will let them know that the members of the public are asking for more information, and I will encourage them to make sure we have the necessary budget to make sure we can go and promote a more efficient issue like this where we can safeguard our consumers. So I very much appreciate that question. And I hope that my board members are even listening to this and they can hear the public, they want more of it.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Betty Grandison from Facebook. She wants to know if Bitcoin will be addressed by the FTC and if Bitcoin is a scam.
I think, well, so at this point in time, I really can't answer that question as to whether it is something that is going to be addressed by the FTC. It is something I am aware that there is supposed to be a digital payment system or a digital payment currency. I am not sure how it is going to work. I don't have any information on that. So I don't want to speak definitively on it at this particular time. The reality of the situation is that it may be that the FTC does regulate it, and it may be that there's another regulator who's given the responsibility for that. So I really can't speak to that at this time. I wish I could provide more information. Unfortunately, I cannot. In terms of whether or not it is a scam, I really can't speak to that, and I don't want to speak to it at this particular time. When I get more information, I will be able to do more on it, and I will also pass on this information to the powers that be with the permission of Madam President, that Barbadians are very interested in knowing more on digital payments, and they want to know whether they will fall into the category of scams or not.
Okay, we have a question from Darley Greenwich. from YouTube, as we're going to be looking to wrap up soon. His question is, how does the money grow in blessing circles?
All right. In terms of the money growing, it really doesn't grow, it circulates. And I think that is the point that Mr. Husbands wanted me to make just now. So it is a case where, let me just go back to my screen again. I hope that he is hearing me, but the funds don't really grow, they circulate. They tell you that they grow, but usually it grows in the owner's pocket. That's the only place that it grows. But the truth is that it is very much dependent on new people coming in to pay for the people who were there before. Are there any more questions, Mr. Boyd?
No, we don't have any questions. There were any questions?
There's a lady there, Angela Sutton. We probably can make her the last.
Okay, let's hear from Angela.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Just not a question as such, but just concerning the meeting turns. For instance, I have been in a meeting turn. This is a number of years ago, and I've always felt that it has to be run by reliable persons and honest persons as well, because you have to rely on each partner within that group to pay their money weekly or monthly or however it's being run, to ensure that whoever is at the top of the list to receive their pay, that all the money is there. Because if you have someone that defaults, it would obviously be a problem and when it came to the paying out. And then also along where the investing any kind of money, for myself personally, I always feel it's got to be a sum of money that you can well afford to lose in the just in cases. Because again, once again, you just never know. And then, Ms. Ward, you had said in one of your experiences where persons had taken out a loan from the bank. Well, I find that kind of concerning, because it would mean then, from what I think, that they didn't have the money in the first place to make that investment. And they felt that they had to take out a loan. But then again, you have to pay back the bank at some stage. And if you haven't got the funds, once again, you're in a problem. And then lastly, your last slide had on your contact information, but it came up and went quite quickly, so I wasn't able to write it down.
Okay, I will share that again. But Ms. Sutton, I want to thank you for raising that point, because there are a few points I realized that I want to clarify. Let me get to that last slide. Oh dear.
Sorry.
Right, let me just get to that last slide so you can, oh dear. Right, so that is there. I hope you can see it.
Yes,
clearly.
please, thank you.
Okay, I want to say that for the purposes of clarity, I am not endorsing a person's engagement in a meeting turn. The truth is that with the meeting turn, remember a few years ago, there was a meeting turn that ended disastrously. Remember, there were so many people who were involved in it, and they were camping out by this lady, and this lady had gone into hiding. I don't remember all of the circumstances, but I know it ended disastrously. So I agree with you, Ms. Sutton, when you say that you are really depending on one of the persons not to default. I remember this is a few years ago when I was in a meeting with a family member. And it was, a lot of it was family, but then there were one or two persons who were not family. And it was those one or two who defaulted. And the family member had felt so bad that they ended up having to make up that person's turn. So I was not in any way endorsing a meeting turn. the meeting return has its own risk, and you are really dependent on the goodwill of all of the persons participating. Because
Indeed.
the person who got their money in January, you want to hope that everything remains equal by October.
Indeed. Indeed.
So I want to say that. And I also wanted to make the point that any investment is a risk. So I remember I wanted to make this point when Ms. Lane has spoke earlier, but it slipped my mind, but I made a note when you were speaking this second. So I wanted to say that any investment is a risk, and I like the point that you made about investing what you can afford to lose, because the reality of the situation is that you have to manage your risk. So you have to know what is a high risk investment activity versus a low risk investment activity. So you know that, let's say for example, driving in your car, it is a risk. You can always get into an accident, but there are things you can do to minimize that risk. You put on your seatbelt, you drive within the speed limit, you try to drive on roads where you are comfortable with, roads that you know, because there's certain roads that may have a sharp turn to the left or to the right, and if you're not familiar with it, you can find yourself in problems. So I'm saying that everything we do, there is a risk associated with it. And investments, there is a risk, but you try to, when you're investing, try to find those investments that have a lower level of risk and follow those. And that is the reason why it is so important to have a prospectus, because the prospectus explains, or it should explain, the level of risk that the investment is likely to carry, and you can make an informed decision about how much risk you can take on, because only you know your appetite for risk. I know myself, I am the mother of 2 and a wife. I have a very low appetite for risk. I can't afford to, I lose everything, and I might be sleeping outside of my house. So you have to know where you are, and I want to remind everybody. So I'm saying that if you want to invest your money in a pyramid scheme, I don't advise it. It is extremely high risk. Chances are you're going to lose your money.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward. We want to thank you for an engaging and educational presentation. And we had some questions which were sent in advance. So what we're going to do is that we're going to be looking to answer those questions, and we're going to post the answers on our social media, so you can look for the answers to those questions on our social media. At this time, we're going to move to our vote of thanks, and it's going to be done by the chairman of the BARP Consumer Affairs Committee, Mr. John Martineau. So over to Mr. John Martineau.
Thank you, Peter. Well, this has been extremely, extremely educational. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it gives me great pleasure to be delivering the vote of thanks today based on the educational seminar. I want to say on behalf of the BARP Consumer Affairs Committee, that I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the team of the Fair Trading Commission for this seminar on scams and schemes. As we're all aware, this topic has been on the mouths of many of our members. And there's a reason for this, because we always appear to be the most vulnerable of the population as it relates to these scams and these schemes. But I'm sure, based on what we heard today, the interaction, the questions asked, and the answers coming, that some of us we don't have all the answers yet, but we clearly are in a better position educationally now at the end of this seminar than where we were at the beginning. For that, I want to thank Ms. Dava Leslie Ward for her wonderful presentation, educational, and then also to the rest of the supporting team of the FTC, Ms. Wanda Critchlow-Trotman, Ms. Samantha Hines, Ms. Julie Regis, and Ms. Nikila Hutchison-Holder. Thank you all so much. I also want to thank BARP's Marketing and Communications Officer and today's MC, Mr. Peter Boyce. Thanks, Peter, for ensuring that this event was well advertised, and then for creating and developing the content on all the social media platforms. Ms. Charlene Best, thank you for your behind the scenes coordination. And I know this was ably supported by our digital producer, Ms. Caroline Canterbury. I also want to thank the Board of Management of BARP for extending the services of the Secretariat to the Fair Trading Commission and also to the services of the Consumer Affairs Committee. Once again, thank you all, and I do believe that this has been a success. Enjoy the rest of your day. I don't have to say drive safely because I'm assuming that all of us at this age group are staying home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Martineau. And we would like to thank all the BARP members and all the members of the public and the media for attending this session. This session, a joint collaboration between the Fair Trading Commission and the Barbados Association of Retired Persons. It's been a pleasure having you. Stay tuned to our BARP 50 Plus radio show and our social media for when we'll be having another seminar. So thanks again for attending on all the different platforms, and take care, and whatever you do for the rest of the day, have yourself a BARPy day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Sandy. Bye.